I thought, well, he's so sweet, but he don't know.
Right.
Fast forward just a couple years, a businessman that owned that. See, we always thought that the golf course owned that because there was a driving range.
Right.
The golf course did not own that. A man owned that, and the deal was they kept it mowed, and he let them use it as a driving range.
Okay.
He approached me 3 times to buy a piece of property off of him. I thought he meant, and he said, I'm pounding him a branch. So I thought he meant back up there in the holler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
right.
I didn't want that. And finally, the 3rd time, he said, Barry, he said, why won't you talk to me about this land I'm trying to sell you? I said, well, Randy, I want to be on the 4 lane. I want to be on the 4 lane. He said, Barry, how much further on the 4 lane can you get than the driving range?
Yeah.
I said, you're talking about the driving range? He said, yes, I'm talking about the driving range.
Right.
And so then the light bulb went off and was like, okay. And so that was God that answered that prophecy and the prayers that we had prayed.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful. I mean, I admire the vision, admire what you're doing. I think it's great.
Thank you
I
so
really
much.
do. I mean, you got to know what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Okay. I've shared this before that Noah didn't have an ark ministry. He only built 1 ark.
Right.
Okay. He didn't go from town to town showing people how to build arks.
Right.
And if we do what we're supposed to do.
Yes, sir.
And I think one of the keys I've seen in ministry, that there's a lot of people, a lot of ministers out there that have a lot of troubles because they're sort of doing everything they can do, everything they want to do, instead of just what God has told them to do.
Yes. I see that. We call it burnout. You know, that was a big word back in the 90s, early 2000s, spiritual burnout. And I heard a man say one time, and I never forgot this, and I've used it in countless sermons. If Samuel would have poured his oil on the other 7 sons, he would have been empty by the time he got to David.
Right.
And what I've found out is so many times I've seen ministers waste their oil on things God didn't assign them to.
Exactly.
Man assigned them to.
Yeah.
And then by the time the right person came, they were so exhausted or so depleted, they had nothing to pour into that person or that ministry or that assignment that God had for them. And I've tried to, as I've got older, I've tried to ask myself, okay, God, do you want me to take this preaching appointment? Do you want me to take this revival? Because Carlene and I both felt that after the kids were out of school, God would open up even more of our evangelism. And he has. We've been preaching down south and going to Alabama, Georgia, places like that. But at the same time, just because somebody calls you and asks you to preach, it doesn't mean that that's your assignment to preach. So I've tried to stay sensitive to that. On what is my assignment, what God has called me to do, and who He's called me to.
Yeah, I've never heard it termed like that, but you're absolutely right. I think we can. Let me go back to casting your pearls before the swine. I found that when the young rich ruler came to Jesus and asked him, "What must I do?" and Jesus began to tell him, "Sell all you have, give it to the poor, come follow me." And he went down the line, and then the young rich ruler just turned and walked off.
Right.
But Jesus didn't chase him, and he never mentioned him again.
Right.
And there's some people there's some things in life that will suck the life out of you. I see Jesus went on about business.
Yes.
And I think in ministry and life, and that if we do what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
You know, and I had a lot of people as I started doing what I'm doing now in media, I've got about 50 ministers that count on me to get their message out.
Right.
And my mobile app's in 60 countries now. And they get mail from New York for California and don't know why they get it.
Right.
But and I don't stop and explain it.